We teach a hawk or rugby style of tackling here. This was something popularized, right, in 2015, right? Pete Carroll, the Seahawks tackling system became really, really popular, but really it's just a form of rugby tackling. That's just some slight, with some slight differences from traditional teaching, the way we would teach normal form tackling. I like it, right? I think it's simpler. I think it's safer. I think the biomechanics and the way our body works and the way our body is able to drive through things using leg power works a little bit better. And I think it's better for that. I think it's more complete. It covers more situations and helps us practice tackling from non-ideal tackling positions. So we've been doing this for about 10 years. Been through a few different programs running this type of tackling system. Borrowed a lot of ideas and drills from many different people throughout time, and dove into a lot of rugby drills for tackling. Right? But kind of boils down to this. This is the tackle type that we want, right? We want to have our shoulder making contact with the thighs. We want a good clamp with our hands on the back of the thighs or the knee there. Our legs in a good position to be explosive and drive through, right? So we need some knee bend there with our head up. This is the play that that picture actually comes from, okay? And you're gonna see a good example here of somebody who's not balanced. So our first guy come in, yes, he slows the running back down, but he wasn't completely balanced. He was trying to get off a block at the time. Larger back runs him over, but a much smaller person behind, right, our free safety, gets in a nice position here, comes to balance, and gets in a perfect spot to make this play. So here we see the first man coming through, kind of gets run over, but now we see the second man in a nice position to drive through and lift and make the tackle. So simple biomechanics, right? We use the biomechanics of creating leg drive, right? That's our most powerful way of driving, creating our leg drive, similar to a deadlift or a squat. Leg drive keeps us on our feet, moving through contact, not ducking our head and not stopping. Lifting when we make contact involves standing up like we would with a squat and pulling our hands like we would be with a row, like a dumbbell row, pulling those into our chest. And we try to relate it similar to how we would shoot a double in wrestling or even a single and pulling that leg in. Contact points. We're always looking for the near hip or thigh, or depending on if we're trying to make an impact or profile tackle, some people would call it, to the pec, the one closest to us. When we are starting our tracking of the tackler, that's what we consider the near. So what are the tackling points we use? Seek, strike, and strain, right? Once again, something I got from somebody. I was able to kind of make it my own and tweak it a little bit. We got to use parts of everything that we're given. This is something I use. Seek, right? We're going to seek and track the strike point. When tracking, our speed needs to relate to the ball carrier's speed. We need to close the distance quickly before coming to balance when in tackle range. I think that's a part that we miss a lot of, is that most missed tackles actually start in the seek area because we didn't close the distance. We're not in the proper position to make the tackle, right? Strike point is the near hip. That's the closest hip to you when you begin seeking. That's where your eyes need to go. If we're making a tackle, we would consider in the hole, right, meeting someone at the line of scrimmage. Impact tackle, it's the same thing. We're going to track the near shoulder. Strike, we want a shoulder strike. Same shoulder, same foot at the strike point. Wrap and clamp our hands, either around the hamstrings or back of the knees. We're clamping. Single leg wrap possible, can be effective, and impact tackles, we're going to be creating around a bear hug and driving through. And then finally our strain, this is the finish, right? We made contact, now we need to finish. We're either driving through or we're lifting off the ground to finish the ball carrier. You need to have mental toughness. Strain through the finish as hard as you can go. We do not want to go down. You must force them down against their will, right? Running backs don't want to go to the ground. Ball carriers don't want to go to the ground. We need to force them to the ground against their will. That is our mindset when tackling, right? It is not easy. Seek, right? Read the play, get your eyes on your key, win. Win your block, win your read, then we seek the runner. Near hip, as we just said, that's what's closest to us when we start. A lot of times, if we're tracking from inside out, that means our head goes behind the runner. If you're outside and the runner's running at you, well, now you're tracking the outside hip. So your head is actually on the outside, forcing the runner back inside, right? Full speed tracking till distance is close to the strike zone. We want to close space fast. 2 reasons. 1, it gets us in a better position. 2, it makes the runner stop and think and lets other people come to clean it up if needed. Even when squared up, we need to close the distance. Close the distance and then come to balance with our feet. All right, so here's some good examples here. We'll watch this one from the end zone. So our free safety, number 49 here, is going to come downhill. And we'll watch the tracking. So now on that pitch, that near hip he's tracking is the hip closest to him, right? So it'll be the right hip of the ball carrier. And you can see how he strikes with his head behind and is able to finish the tackle. Watch this one from the end zone as well. Number 14 here, in the middle of the screen. He has to read the play first. Now he's tracking that near hip. That hip closest to him, right, it's facing him. But if he's going to make this tackle correctly, his head's going to be behind where the ball carrier is going. All right, near hip, come to balance. Squared up, but you can see the near hip, right, especially when this catch was made, the near hip now was actually be the outside hip. If that guy turns and starts to run upfield, his outside hip is the near hip. Make contact with the outside hip, finish the tackle. All right. So now here's a good example of, well, a lot of times we preach head behind, right? We're tracking that near hip, our head behind a lot. Well, what happens if our head's on the proper side and then the running back cuts a different direction? So now our head's actually going to be in front of the tackle. So we're going to watch our rover up here. He's coming downhill. So the near hip to him right now is the hip outside closest to the sideline. Well, if that running back takes a cut to go outside, his head's going to go in front. So we see his head had to come in front to make that tackle because that was the way the running back was running based on where his near hip was. So we don't try to say head behind, head in front, head goes this way, head goes that way. Near hip, get your eyes on the hip close to you and shoot through it. If your head ends up in front of the tackle, as long as we're going for the near hip, we're okay. That's where we want to be. Right? Strike zone. So we use this in every single tackle, but this is really important to teach our kids, especially in high school football, because there's some different rules of what we have to do on a big hit, right? So this is a hit that might be in the hole or in the middle of the field, right? Making a big hit on a receiver. What is the strike zone? Well, a lot of our guys play baseball, related to baseball. Your strike zone, right, is the top of the shoulders here. So just like the strike zone in baseball, right? It's from the top of the knee to the mid-chest of the ball carrier, right? So just above here, okay? We want to make sure we're making in contact with that, so our shoulder's going to the pec, right? If the batter's box, or excuse me, if in the batter's box, so the kind of verbiage we use is that if we're close enough to them, we're in the batter's box, now we're ready to strike, okay? This prevents head contact. We have to make sure we're teaching to wrap, right? High school football, if you do not intend to wrap when you're making a big hit, right, that is a penalty. So we have to make sure we wrap, and you can still hit hard and not be penalized. Right? So the strike. The strike point is with the shoulder. We call that an impact tackle. If it's shoulder to shoulder, some people would call that a profile tackle. Most of our strikes are going to come with the hip or thigh board, right? We're going right to the thigh board with the shoulder. We want to wrap hard, clamp our hands, right? We want to be grabbing something. Usually it's both legs of the ball carrier, or we're clamping onto one leg to remove the legs, right? Impact, our clamp should look like a bear hug. Low clamp should either be connecting hands or grabbing hamstrings or the back of the knees and bringing them up. And we need to strain, drive, right? So there's a couple different ways we strain to finish. Drive is first. This is the main thing we teach. We hit, we drive through. We drive through until, right, they lose their balance and we fall on top of them, okay? Eye tracking the near hip, always drive finishing with an impact tackle. If we're making an impact tackle, our finishers drive. If we're going high, we need to drive through it. We can't just hit and stop.